So if you've seen the first three videos, we went over the basic categories of motion, looks, and sound. And I thought it'd be a good time to discuss at this point the different shapes that these coding blocks are coming in. I think it's important to understand the differences so that you, when you're putting together code, you have an idea of the sort of the behaviors of these different types. So there are actually 6 different shapes that Scratch blocks come in. I'm going to list them here: hat blocks, stack blocks, Boolean, reporter, C blocks, and cap blocks. And I'll cover each of those in this video. So the first one that we're going to talk about are the hat blocks. The hat blocks are almost all located in the events category, and they look like this. They have what looks like to be a little hat on the top of the block. These blocks are designed to get a particular part of your code working. So for example, if you just brought out something like one of the ones we first learned about in video 1, which was move 10 steps, that block by itself doesn't do anything unless it's triggered or started by a hat block in your scripting. So these hat blocks are key to any project that you're working on because they are what gets any piece of code started. Okay? And again, they're almost all in the events category. The next set of blocks are the most populous in Scratch, and those are the stack blocks. They're the normal ones that look like what you are used to when you're seeing blocks in Scratch. And so they each have a notch at the top and a bump at the bottom. So a notch allows them to attach to something above them, and a bump at the bottom means that you can attach something to them. And you can see in our current set of code here, in these blocks here, we've got a bunch of different stack blocks. All right, and so stack blocks again are the most prevalent. You'll see them and use them probably the most in the set of code that you do. The next block shape are the reporter blocks. Now, these blocks I mentioned in an earlier video, and I said I'd get to them, and so I do want to explain them here. You'll find them pretty much in every category, but they're the blocks generally at the bottom of the category that look like ovals, and they hold information that might change over time. So remember when we did the point in direction script, the number that, or the value that shows up here depends on what you select. So if they're pointing to the right, that was 90 degrees. If they're pointing to the left, that's negative 90 degrees. So that value, depending on where that cat is in this script, is going to change. And so you don't know what that value is at any given moment, which is why you use something like a reporter block to give you that information. So if I said, for example, say direction for 2 seconds, it's going to tell us that it's going in the negative 90 degrees direction. But if we were to play this, and I were to stop it right there and say direction, now it's going in the positive 90 direction. So pulling reporter blocks into your script allows you to get information from your project at any given time or any specific moment. Okay, and I wanted to cover one last thing about the reporter blocks, and I'm going to show you through this example here. They can be nested inside each other. What I mean by that is, if I were to take this reporter block here, it allows me to put more reporter blocks inside. So for example, I took this one and I made it into this one, and I just put the direction reporter block in one of these open spots, and I just typed something else. I typed text. So for example, I say my current direction is space, and I throw it into my say block. And so what that does is when I click on it, it gives me a full sentence instead. Let me do that one more time. Click on it. And it gives me a string, which is really just a bunch of text put together. And in this case, that string includes the reporter block direction. My current direction is 90. Okay, the next two blocks kind of work together, or at least you see them often together, and so I'm going to cover them somewhat in combination here. So the C blocks are the blocks that look like the shape of a C, and they might also have the shape of an E, but they are designed to hold other blocks inside of them. And so a simple one is the forever block, and I think we've seen this up here when we wanted to have the cat continue to move in a certain direction, and then if on edge bounce. So this one will look like this. We're basically saying move 5 steps, change my costume, move 5 more steps, change my costume, and then if you reach an edge, just bounce back in the other direction. All right, pretty straightforward, and that just goes on forever. So C blocks are designed to hold other blocks inside of them. I'm going to show you another one which actually will contain not only stack blocks in it, but it will also have what we call a Boolean block. So let me bring this out here. So Boolean blocks are, think of them as conditions, looking at something and then comparing it to something else. And so in your operators category, you've got these different Boolean blocks here that are comparing one thing with another, or looking at a condition to say if something is greater than something else, do this, or if something is equal to something else, do this. And so in this case, I've picked a greater than symbol. I'll just pull these out so you can kind of see what they look like. And because of that shape, that Boolean shape, I realized that it matches what's in this if block, this if C block. And so I can put this inside there. And now I can say if something is greater than, let's say, 89. And in this case, that works really well, because I'm going to say if the direction is greater than 89, meaning if the cat is heading in the rightward direction, meaning 90, then I want you to have the Malibu Beach backdrop. If, however, it's less than 89, which is going to be going in the other direction, I want you to change the backdrop to Arctic. And let's see how that works. So I'm going to go get a flag, clicked, and because the movements are happening here, this is what starts us. This can work simultaneously, and let's go ahead and do it. Okay, notice that it's not working, and there's a reason for that. The if block will work once, so that's why it changed to the beach Malibu backdrop once. Once that's done, it doesn't do it anymore because it doesn't need to. It's not being called to. And so I have to bring in another block, forever, and look at that. We just talked about nesting. We could nest blocks inside of other blocks. So this if block can nest inside a forever block. Let's give it a try. Okay, so do you see what's happening? It's saying forever do this condition. If my direction is greater than 89 degrees, then switch to the beach scene. If it is less than 90 degrees, then switch to the Arctic backdrop. And the final block that we'll talk about today, the block shape, is the cap block. And the cap block is just any block that doesn't allow anything else to follow it. And there's only a couple. And I'll get into those probably in another video, particularly this one on deleting a clone. But I just want you to notice that there are at least 3 here in this example. The stop everything block, the deleting the clone block, and actually the forever block as well. So for these types of blocks, nothing can be added below them, and they're generally an end to whatever set of blocks you've put together. And that's all for block shapes.